Hi, Josie. How are you?
I am wonderful. Sis, how are you?
I am good. Life is good. I've been in Atlanta a year, so it's good. I drive into the city often. I think I actually live in Atlanta. I mean, not that Atlanta is um, uh, England or something, but it's just a different vibe. And
Yeah.
I wanted to come here for so long to move, and it just like never lined up. So yeah,
And now it's happening. And you have floated and made it happen for a whole year.
oh yeah.
Yes, and your brand is growing wonderfully.
It's growing slowly, but it's growing.
Yes, you got to be on television. Like, I'm sitting on the sidelines watching, like, yes, sis,
Yeah, we're doing a little thing. We're doing a couple of things. So we'll see what happens in the next year. In a year or so, we'll see what happens with Ashley Cobb and where it takes me. But we are here to talk about sex and the single woman.
Yes.
So I saw the book and I was a little intrigued, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I need to pick this up. So it's a collection of like essays that different women write about their love lives. And it was very relatable. Very relatable.
I felt like in my reading, I was like, oh, I really, I was asked to be a part of the anthology. They have been working on the project for a while. Sex and the Single Woman is kind of a literary spinoff of this book called Sex and the Single Girl, which was this cult classic book, but it was very like white, heteronormative, book, and it really didn't explore a lot of differing experiences. So when they asked me to join and write, I was like, oh, I have a perfect topic that I would like to write about. But when I received the full anthology and I've gone through and read lots of the essays, I felt the same way. Like, this is hella relatable. I think there's a story for everybody in this book.
It is. And, I've been really reluctant to call myself a writer.
What? But you right. That's what you do primarily.
It is, right? But I think for me, where my struggle has been is because I didn't go to school for journalism or communications or to be a writer, right?
Me either.
Really?
Well, I have a Black background in English and literature. Like, I'm, I teach writing, but writing an essay or a literary paper is very different than communications.
Okay, that's true. So my background is in public health. That's what my degree is in, right?
Okay.
So I have been very reluctant over the years to call myself this writer because one, my writing has gotten better over the years, but I'm like, I feel like I don't have the that writers have. I don't know what it is.
What?
I don't know what it is, but
listen, I'm gonna tell you, I did this yoga class with my good friend yesterday, and she does these kinds of meditations and things for us to focus on during the yoga class. And one of the things she said is, speaking about like do instead of don't.
Okay.
And so when I think about you, I'm like, you're saying you don't have what writers have, but clearly you do. You have an entire brand and following that started with your writing. So obviously you have that.
True.
I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do this every time we talk, Ashley.
I see that, and I need it. So I'm with it. I need this. I need the confidence. So I'm happy. But like, I really saw myself in the book, and I was like, I could have written something that, because someone asked me last year, she had a book about being Black, a Black girl and her hair. And she was like, I want, if you're interested to contribute. And I was like, I don't know what to write. I have nothing. I didn't think I have anything to contribute or could write it in a way that was like, capture people's attention. But when I was reading this, I'm like, this is very relatable. Like, I think I think the one story or essay here that like perfectly fit my life with two of them. The first one was Confessions of a Lonely Feminist.
Oh yes. I love that one.
That one was like, she's telling my life story.
Oh my gosh. And by feminist, she just means a woman who loves herself. You know what I mean? Not a woman who hates men.
Right.
But just as someone who's like, yeah, you know, like I should be treated with a certain kind of value and humanity because I'm a human being, even though I am a woman.
And you have to
I don't want the title to like,
you have to clarify that in these
throw folks off. Yes, right. But that essay, I was like, woo, child.
Because in the essay, she talked about how her mother was divorced, like mine, and she talked about how her mother basically taught her how to be this independent Black woman. You know, men are things that you want, don't need. You need to be able to take care of yourself, go to school, do all these things. And so when she was doing that, and then she just realized that, I also want love, but love is not coming to me as easily as I thought it would. Right. And I think I have that same struggle. Like, I don't know. Well, I do know. I think part of my, outside of what I do for a career, part of my issues have been that my mother taught me to be very independent, right? She was like, my mom got married young. She married her high school sweetheart, my daddy. They got married, they had kids, but their marriage dissolved, right? And that was not the picture she had, the vision she had for her life. So it was very important for me to be like, I need for you, regardless of if you get married or not, because marriages end. I need for you to be able to take care of Ashley, despite whatever else happens. Right. So I've been I'm very independent. And sometimes that can come off as, I don't really need a man type. It's not that men don't really know how to adjust to that and to take that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It is this idea of need versus want. I've been listening to these conversations going around, particularly like this last conversation where TD Jakes was talking about, women and women of today. And one of the things that really stuck out for me, and something that I think that I have experienced in my relationships with men, is that, like he was saying, men need a need to fulfill and pour into. They need a woman to have a need that they can pour into. And I was raised kind of the same way. My mother married young. My parents were married until my father passed away. My mother got married at 18 years old. And, I'm probably a bit older than you, Ashley. I'm 45, almost 46. And so, my mother, and I was like the younger child. Okay. I'm the baby of the family. So my mother came of age in the 50s and 60s when a woman couldn't purchase her own car or apartment or home. She had to have a male co-signer.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it was like she really kind of didn't have a choice but to be dependent in some ways on my father. And I'm sure that my mother has watched many women, women of that time, and we have this experience sometimes too. We watch what happens to women who don't have their own.
Yes.
We see what happens. We see what can happen.
Yes.
Let's be hopeful. Not to say that always happens, but we see what can happen. Yeah, when a woman does not have her own and cannot take care of herself.
And for me, that's really scary. And I know, I'm probably like projecting or trying to live through my traumas, as people say, all these things. But and that's probably the reason I'm super, super independent and I want to be able to get my own thing, is because I've seen my parents' situation. I've seen what happened to other people who just kind of was solely dependent on a man. And,
right.
and people have good intentions. I don't think a lot of people go into marriage thinking, oh, we're gonna get divorced,
No.
I think things happen and then you divorce. And then you don't really plan for it. And then now you're just there, stuck out there.
Now you're there and you're expected to just pick up with your life and move on with your life, a lot of times without having the tools to do that. And so our mothers have experienced some level of that. Even my mother, who stayed married, until my parents were married for almost 40 years when my father passed away. So she didn't leave her marriage. And she didn't have to struggle as a divorced, single woman with children. But maybe some of the reason that she stayed was because she didn't want to be a divorced single woman in that day and age. That was also a time when, a woman might not automatically or might not have access to her children. Like her children might have to go with the father who is the supporter. All of these things we have to think about, in the same way that race, hasn't come very far in this country. We think about women's issues. We have not come very far. So that's one generation away from me. And so we grew up to be independent. We grew up to take care of ourselves. And we look at partnership, first of all, as partnership. And we look at it as something that adds value to our lives.
Correct.
Like I want to be partner because I want to build a life with someone. I want to add value to my life. Or, I want someone to add value to my life and I want to add value to theirs. And I want it to be something that is, like I said, partnership, something that where we show up as equals, where we show up, hopefully healthy and fully ready to partner.
I have a friend that said, he's a man, by the way, and he says partnership just means woman-dominated relationship. That's what he said. When you say you want a partnership, that means it's a woman-dominated. I'm like, how
so
sad? How so? Like, how did we get here?
How did we get there? How did that connotation come up? Because if you think about partnership in any other context, it just means duality, like equal, right? It just means equal. But to some men, when women talk about being equal, they feel like that means domination. They feel like that means emasculation. And, which is crazy because who doesn't want to be in a partnership as hard as this world is?
Right.
Men be asking for kinds of responsibilities that frankly and sadly, a lot of them just aren't able to meet. Just because of the world that we live in. Like we don't live in a world where most men can, provide in the traditional sense and sometimes even protect. This world is crazy.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And so why can't we build something where we are both showing up in as our best selves?
Right.
And doing the things that we are good at.
Right.
Because I hear men say things like that, but I think about, most of the women, like my mother worked. She was not a, stay-at-home wife. She worked, so she went to work every day. And I will say that they had much more of a partnership than maybe some other marriages. So my father, was probably a higher wage earner. He took care of everything financially. So my mother never had to worry about bills and bill payment and these types of things. And he took care of everything outside of the house. So anything with our home, anything with the cars, like that type of thing. And my mother handled, she went to work and she handled the children and everything on the inside of the house. But nowadays, and I have, as someone who is divorced and has experienced this, I was showing up trying to do everything. So I, am most of the relationships that I've been in have been a higher wage earner.
You were, or they were?
I was. I have always been pretty good at like managing a household. So like bill payment and taking care of those types of things, I usually would take that on, you know. And then because I grew up with these traditional ideals, you know, I'm gonna be the one primarily cooking. I'm gonna be the one primarily cleaning, managing the household, you know, I have a 16-year-old daughter, taking care of her, you know, so it's just like, I had this moment where I was like, I need partnership because otherwise, this is not a 50-50. This ain't a 60-40. This is like a 70-30.
And one of the questions that the woman who wrote Confessions of a Lonely Feminist posed, she was like, can women have it all? Because I often say that I don't think so, or I don't even have it all at the same time. Like, I don't know if you can build a successful career and be the wife and be the mother, all that at one time. I feel like something's going to go lacking.
Right.
I don't know. Like because it's men.
If we're following tradition, and sometimes even if we're not following the traditions, right? Like even if we are saying that we're non-traditional.
Okay.
A lot of times, because I think that I show up as a feminist, womanist in relationship. This is just who I am and how I live my life. Same. So it's not a secret by any means. And I will date, you know, when I date men, I will date men who are, who seem to be progressive, but yet we still end up having these kinds of battles where it's like, you know, I'm still being asked to. So even if I'm coming in having conversations about partnership, and if we are both going to be pouring into the household financially, we both need to be pouring into the household in other ways in managing the household. It needs to be us both pouring in. We will still end up in these kinds of, you know, binary, gender conversations.
And getting to your essay, The Party of One. You talked about how I thought this was really cool. One, you talked about how your friend asked you about, you know, being married, and you was like, it's not that great. I'm like, okay.
Listen, I've been married twice. I've had another, like, I don't know how many engagements. I put it in the book because I actually sat and counted it, and now I don't even remember.
You're like, sis, it is not always cracked up to me.
Enjoy your single life. It's so funny. The woman that inspired the essay is engaged now. So she's engaged, she's getting married, and I'm like, but she always makes this joke whenever she starts to, like, she would start to worry about, like, if she was gonna find partnership and like rushing to get married. And I would be like, girl, do you want a tour of my rings? like I got a jewelry box of rings. Let's talk about it. What does a ring mean? But it doesn't guarantee anything.
True, but I think, and I struggle with this too. Like I struggle with, I'm very modern, right? In my in how I view relationships, but there's still this piece of me that still latches on to traditional and what society tells us what a woman should do. And so it's like an internal battle, right?
And the reason that I speak about it is because I had that battle. If I'm honest, I think that I only got married because I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. My conversations with this friend of mine used to kind of be around, you know, a lot of women feel like if they are not chosen in this kind of way, right? So like if, you know, if a person doesn't choose me to be their wife, if there isn't that intention, then there's something wrong with me. And so, you know, the thing that I was trying to say to her was that being chosen doesn't really mean anything. It's about how you're treated once that choice is made. So that's why I was like, you know, I know that you want to get married and you kind of want to, everybody wants to feel
yes,
like they are desired.
correct.
And what is a greater desire for a woman than to be a wife? You know what I mean? That's kind of what society, you know, presents as like the epitome of womanhood.
Right.
You know, it's being a wife and a mother.
Right.
And I don't know. I just remember being like, wow, this is a fucking scam. I was like, I cannot believe that women are like chasing men down to marry them. And men's lives benefit from marriage much more than women's do. This is like, and I'm not bullshitting. You can literally look up this research. Men literally live longer when they marry. Women do not. You know what I mean?
Y'all stressed out.
because it is stressful. And like you said, there is research that talks about how men in the workforce, just in the world, when they are married, they are seen as better men. It is a benefit, right? They are seen as, oh, you're a good man, you're married, you're responsible. And also if you have a wife, you have support.
Right.
Right? So while women, when we marry and we have children, it's seen as a liability almost.
It is.
Right. And it's like, it's this expectation that, and I still struggle with this even with a teenager. Like, you know, you're supposed to work like you don't have children, and you're supposed to perform as a mother as though you don't work.
Right.
And like, and God forbid you have any other dreams outside of a 9-to-5.
Right.
You know?
It's hard. So how were you able to get to the space of moving past what society told you you're supposed to do and being able to be okay and live your truth? How are you able to?
It's more about the being okay where I am, as opposed to, because I'm still on the journey towards acceptance.
Okay.
I mean, I just ended a relationship where I was monogamous in that relationship, and we had conversations about it.
Y'all look happy too. Go ahead.
Oh,
was he the one you wrote about in the book? That's the one you're talking about in the book, or that's somebody different?
That's somebody different, girl.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Woo! Thus the conversation on poly. But so even in that relationship, I was still thinking about, oh, you know, I'm not against marriage. I just understand that women have to be more thoughtful and negotiate better about and make better choices about who they marry.
Okay.
Because for women, choosing the wrong partner really is, and I guess this is for anyone who gets married. You choose the wrong partner, it'll make your life hard. Yeah. But women's dreams, they will lose not only in sight of their dreams, but the ability to implement and live their dreams if they choose a partner that does not support that. Because the world already doesn't support women living their dreams.
And I believe that. So I had a conversation yesterday, matter of fact, with two of my friends. I made a post on Facebook about, the post was a tweet that said something about many things I wanted over the years would have ruined my life. Something to the fact that, you know, if I had ruined my life. And then one of my friends was like, sometimes it's self-sabotage, right? And they were talking about a situation with a guy. But as I was thinking, I was like, if I had, this is like 6-7 years ago, if I had dated said guy, my life would look very different now. Like, I think, you know, I think I would have had moments of where I was happy. You know, I might have had a kid or something like that, but doing this right now, I would not be doing. And I don't know long term how happy I would have been in that situation.
And then, you know, even when you have those things, like I can remember getting married, and just not necessarily regretting the decision. I think I was fine in my first marriage. I had my daughter when I got married the second time. And I think it was more so the coupling of like marriage and motherhood. Mm-hmm. So I think when I had my daughter, and I love my daughter very much, but if I'm honest, when I had her, I was like, that's what moved me towards feminism. Because before that, I had very traditional ideals about women and men and gender roles and family. Like I'm a Southern girl. Mm-hmm. You know, and I grew up around women who married young and stayed married. Okay. But when I had my daughter, I remember thinking immediately, like, shit, everything about my life has to change. It is a requirement. Okay. Like, you pretty much are, you know, pushed to become a totally different person. You have to kind of leave your old life behind. And I realized that for my ex-husband, nothing about his life had to change. Not really. Like and it's not that he wasn't an involved parent, but society sees men in parenting roles as optional. Yeah. So he could choose. Yeah. Meanwhile, I never had a choice. Right. Like, always, you know, if my daughter I have to, you know, make sure that my daughter looks presentable at all times. She's outside, she doesn't look presentable. That's a reflection on me, not her father. No, on you. Yeah, her level of education and smarts, like everything, all of that is a reflection of me. I was talking to my friend this morning actually about mothers, and I said, I understand. I don't have any kids, but I understand just from my friends who have kids. I don't think people, even the ones who prepare for children, I don't think, just from the ones, my friends that I know, I don't think they were fully prepared for how different their life was going to be once the baby came. Yeah, we all prepare for anything. And what's sad for women is we are socialized to be wives and mothers almost from birth. As soon as you can walk, we're given a doll. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's your baby. Mm-hmm. That's true. Take care of your baby. Mm-hmm. You know, so we are taught almost from birth that our role is caretaker, mm-hmm. right? Because that's what wives do, and that's what mothers do. Mm-hmm. But even in all of that socialization, even in all of what we are taught through nurture, we still don't. Nobody has conversations about what the hell to do when you get there. Right. People tell you, oh, yes, you should get married. You should absolutely get married. Like, you know, a woman who is a wife is held in high regard. It means all of these different things. I mean, even for Black women, hell, marriage to some extent, if we look from a historical perspective, can mean safety. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like all kinds of things that are connected to marriage, particularly for Black women. And so we're told that we have to be wives, but we also are not really told like how to be relational in that way. Right. How to still find ways to prioritize ourselves and take care of ourselves when we are wives and when we are mothers. Like nobody has those conversations. Nobody prepares you for like, oh, so now that you're a wife, there are going to be all of these expectations of you. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you know, you need to behave a certain way and you're representing your husband and all of these things. Like nobody has conversations like that. No, no one had that conversation with me, for sure. It wasn't a conversation that was had. I'm trying to think. And I don't think it's a conversation that most of my friends. I'm sure there's someone whose mother set them down. I think
I think white women have that conversation with their children because they seem to be, and this may be, I don't know, an off comment, but to me, they seem to be more wife prepared than we are. It seems that way. Like they know. I heard a comment one time. It was like white women go to college to get an MRS degree. All right. They go to college to meet the man and to get married. Like that's their whole college. Like we go to college for a real degree. They go to meet the man, and I think maybe they prepare differently and they know how to kind of operate in those roles differently than we do because someone has told them how to. Maybe.
But I also think that the way that white women are able to operate, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine today, and we were talking about, you know, she's in a relationship, and one of the things that keeps coming up in her relationship is, you know, her softness, like, oh, you know, speaking with a certain softness and all of these things. And, you know, I told her, I was like, I understand this desire for softness, but who makes space for Black women to be soft? You know what I mean? Like we have to have space. We have to feel safe to show up in that softness.
Correct.
I think that white women have that space because who they are is very clearly defined. You know, and they benefit from that. How they're defined as I am a white woman. And we see this even when we could see a Black man date a Black woman and a white woman. He'll treat them totally different because of what we are told white women deserve.
Right. Because I had with my male friends, they were like, you know, white women, they just know how, they're not loud and they know how to talk to you and all this stuff. And they're like, you know, and I'm like, well, I find it hard. I don't date women, so I don't have any personal experience with this, but like, I just find it hard to believe that you can't find a Black woman anywhere that has the attributes that you desire. Like
y'all ain't never seen white women get pissed off?
Apparently not.
You know what I mean? Like white women cut up too, but you know, a lot of times the way that they are treated, because they demand a certain, because they are white women, and we live a society that puts them on a pedestal, and we are taught that they deserve certain things. They deserve certain kind of care. So it's easy to be soft in that kind of environment. It's not difficult to be soft in those kinds of environments.
That's true.
But yeah.
That's true. So another one that I liked was, did you read Brown Love, or was it Looking for Brown Love? So that one,
what did you like about it?
Even though that one was, she was an Asian Indian. I thought were relatable because she was trying to have this fairy tale love with someone of her same ethnicity.
Right.
And, she was trying to create what she thought her love life should look like and with who she feel like it should be with. And she was coming up short. She was coming up real short. And, and you know, I think, because I love Black men, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I love Black men. I want to partnership with Black men. But, you know, while reading it, I was like, well, maybe I need to venture out in other waters just to see what it's like, you know, because love really doesn't have a color or ethnicity.
It's true.
And, you know, maybe because I'm focused on a certain type of Black woman too, you know, and even with that, maybe I need to venture out into different, because there's the different types of Black men. Maybe I need to get away from the Black men I have in my head and venture out other waters and see what's out there.
I think that is, I am a person who, like, I'm Black. You know what I mean? So I love everything about Black people. I study and speak about Black people and Black culture. I, you know, HBCU grad, like grew up like community. My parents are from an all Black town in Louisiana. Like I am like Zora Neale Hurston Black.
Black. I love it.
You know, so, but I've had those same thoughts. I guess because I'm queer, I get to have a different experience of like Black dating, where I don't necessarily, like, I don't have to, I shouldn't say have to, me watch my language, just in case you have male viewers.
Okay.
I get to date Black people who are not cis hetero Black men.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I can date I consider myself pan. I'm open to whomever I feel like I have a connection with. You know what I mean? So that essentially is the same as like being able to date men outside of Black men for a straight Black woman. You know what I mean?
So how is that going? Because and maybe me being closed-minded, not closed-minded, that's not the right word. Maybe me being more so stuck on the traditional of what I think a family or I think my partner should look like. That's part of the problem. So how has that been for you to be open to all the things, long as there's connection? How has that been working out?
I mean, I think it's working out swimmingly, you know. I think it's great. I you know, it's a certain level of freedom. I think that as long as I knew that I was attracted to boys, I knew that I was attracted to girls. And then as I've grown, I'm like, oh, maybe a non-binary person. Like I don't really am not so much interested or attracted to people's, I mean, I have types in all of the things that I like, okay?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm just open in that way. Although most of my relationships have been with Black straight men, you know, as far as relationships. So sometimes I still struggle with that traditional idea. Like, you know, I wonder, I have dated women, I've dated gender fluid, gender non-binary folks. And although I've dated, I don't know that I've been in any long-term relationships.
Gotcha.
So I do question myself, like, you know, are you still following along with these traditions? Like, do you still see, because all of the models that I saw of partnership or of marriage, of relationships were, you know, Black straight relationships.
Right.
And so maybe somewhere in my head, I'm like, okay, well, in order for it to be something real,
right,
like marriage, like, but I also am really trying to push past that, you know, and I think that I have a bit more space to explore because I know that even as a single woman and thinking about, as a single mother, like, okay, am I ready to partner with someone who is not traditional? Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I'm raising my daughter. Like, I've had all of those questions. I think that as my daughter gets older and I feel more comfortable showing up as my full self, you know, because I'm like, okay, you're almost 17. Like, I don't have to tiptoe around you as far as, of course, you know, she needs to know everything.
Right. She know everything.
That clip that she's like, you know, my business ain't always your business.
Right. Right.
But I think that I am becoming, and I think also as I'm aging, like I just don't care as much about.
I do that too.
I also have a child. I've been married. The jig is up on that. You know what I mean? So I think I feel a bit more free. I can understand a woman like you, Ashley, who has these, like traditional ideas that you're sorting through, who hasn't been married.
Right. Hasn't experienced them enough.
Yeah, doesn't have children. I can understand why that might be something that, might be more complicated for you.
Yeah. And even with the kid thing, that brings it to like the Aya being the single girl.
Yeah.
And so I go back and forth on the kid thing. You're my Facebook friend. I'm sure you read my statuses.
Yeah. I saw your status.
Huh?
I saw your status where you were like, do I really want kids? Like,
right.
For real? Like, I'm glad that women are asking themselves those questions, because let me tell you, even when you want it, it's hard.
And like for me, honest to goodness, I like my life without children in it. I just don't want to get to the point where I'm like 60 or 55 or 70 right. And like be like, damn, I wish I had a kid, and regret not doing it. Right. I know that's probably not the reason to have a kid. But I
tell you, if I had to live with a regret, it would be the regret of not, as the instead of the regret of I did this and I really should not have. Yeah. Because the regret of not, that's your regret alone. Okay. When you have children and you're not sure if you want them, even if you work really hard to be a great mom, your child is going to be affected by that. True. You know what I mean? And like I tell people all the time that my only goal in parenting, as I move through therapy and deal with some things that I experienced in my childhood, I'm like, my only goal in parenting is to like raise my daughter so that she doesn't have a life that she is recovering from from a childhood. You know what I mean? Her childhood. So I just think that there is not gold stars don't fall from the sky when you become a mother. Okay. You know what I mean? It's really, really hard. It takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of dedication. And each stage of parenting requires something different. So you never really, master it. Right. So you're constantly in this space of learning. And it's a beautiful thing. My daughter was planned, I was married, all of that, and it's still tough. These teenage years have almost taken me out. Okay. And I say all of that to say, if you aren't sure, just think about it from the perspective of not only am I making this choice for myself, I'm making this choice for myself and for my future child. So even if you're not sure, it really is about thinking about, do I have what it takes to invest in raising another human being?
Yeah, and I think I have, but the question I ask myself is, do I want to? Right. Because it's a lot, right? Like I have friends, they have kids, my mom, but like my brother has children. It's a lot. Because you have to create
it the right way. If you're trying to do it in a way where you're raising healthy children, yeah,
it's a lot. It is and it takes a lot from a mother standpoint. It takes a lot out of you, and I was in the book Will Smith, the book he has with the biography he did. Yeah. And he was talking about the part with Jada, where she really wanted to go on tour with her band, but she couldn't because he was on the movie and the kids needed a parent. And so obviously she was the choice. They had to stay home. And, because she's a mama and she doesn't make as much money as Will Smith makes. So, you know, I think about those things. I'm like, well, if I have a kid, and I've seen a lot of like actors in Hollywood talk about, you know, Tisha Campbell. She was saying like she had her kids at the Martin show. Like she didn't work for a while, you know, because she had these kids and she had to only do jobs that were like in the area. So she was all this stuff. And like, you know, do I want to pause my career or slow it down?
And not only your career, your dreams, period.
To raise a kid. Like, I don't know if the answer to that is yes.
I can honestly say that, you know, I divorced my daughter's father. She was probably about 4. So I've been a single mom for almost 13 years now. And sometimes I do think about like, wow, where would my life be if I didn't have the responsibilities of motherhood? If I could, you know, how many books would I have published if I could just couch surf and do odd jobs and adjunct teach, and if I didn't have a mortgage and responsibilities like that?
Right.
Oh, like, where would I even be in the world?
Right.
You know, because I'm not sure I'd be globetrotting and moving around. You know, what would my life be like?
And like for me, like I understand that me being able to move to Atlanta, prior to me moving to Atlanta, I was living in North Carolina, but I didn't have a job. I was freelancing and kind of figuring out my own thing. And I know that if I had a kid, like a kid with responsibilities, I would have had to have a real job. Freelancing and just doing whatever I wanted to do was not going to be an option.
And then it's also taking the leap, right? So you taking the leap, moving to Atlanta and being like, hey, it's sink or swim. Well, you could do that because it's only you.
Correct.
It's only you that's drowning.
Correct. Just me. Just me. No other children. No, nobody else. When I eat McDonald's, my whole family is fed. I gotta feed nobody.
And, you know, and listen, there are some women who be like, fuck it, I don't care. We out here. You know what I mean? And I have a great respect for those women, but it's just not something that I felt comfortable doing.
Right.
You know? Like, people always say that, well, why do you teach, or why do you I'm an administrator right now. Why don't you write full time? And I'm like, because I have a mortgage and the publishing industry is shady.
Right.
I have a kid to raise. So I can't just be out here like, rent is due and I'm owed 6 months of pay from this publisher.
Because something about freelancers, I freelance writing. I told my friend, I was like, I don't see how people do this long term. Because the way people don't pay you on time, or people just like abruptly like, oh, well, we're gonna need you for 2 more months and we'll pick you up later. I'm like, it's interesting. So yeah,
I love Yvette's essay. I love her conversation about like, and Yvette is brilliant. She was a former editor of mine when I wrote for Bitch magazine.
Okay.
And so, you know, I know her personally. I know that she's dealt with some serious heart issues, like health issues, that she's pretty public about. Like, she's experienced congestive heart failure and these things, and she is still trying to get back to herself. And so, you know, that is something to think about as you are aging. And especially if you have long-term health issues, you know, it's like, you know, am I going to be able to, are my eggs viable? Will they be viable if I continue to wait? You know, is my body going to be able to carry a baby successfully and to term? You know?
Because one of my friends asked me, have I gotten like go to fertility and get my eggs and my follicles counted and all this stuff? And I'm like, I haven't, because I'm okay with the fact that whenever, because I'm on birth control, like the implant in my arm, so it comes out in 2 years. And I've been on it off. I got another one. I keep getting them in. So I said at 39, I'll be 39 2 years when it comes out. I'll see where I am in life. And I'm okay with the fact that if at 39 I try to have a baby, there's no eggs left. Okay.
Right.
You know, if there's only 2 follicles left, okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because I'm not that I won't use the word pressed. Being a mother is not something that I like die hard desire.
Yeah.
It's not a top priority for mine.
But like it's something that I would like to experience if it's in the cards for me.
Correct.
Which is how I think women should just approach life, period. Marriage, relationships, and all of that. Like, we become so obsessive and anxious about being in a relationship, getting married, having children, and we do it in such a way that we miss really valuing and appreciating our single lives. Like I write about that in Party of One. Like I loved being single. Loved it. Like I was living my best poly life. You know, I was not trying to commit to anybody. My bed was full of books. You know what I mean? I would do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. And I really didn't have anyone to answer to, you know? And I unfortunately was spending time focusing on trying to be in a relationship.
Your camera went off.
Oh, hold on. So somebody was calling my phone.
There we go.
Here we go. I was so focused on like feeling like I was an old maid. I was still in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
Feeling like old maid, feeling like, oh, you know, you know what they tell women, like, oh, you know, you spend your whole youth, you use up your youth, and then when you're old, you want to get married. You know, so I kind of was buying into some of that because my mother got married when she was 18 years old. So at like 25, you start feeling like an old maid.
Same.
You know?
By the time I was 37, she had kids and we were big kids. Like, you know, here I am with 0 kids. And then had a husband and all this stuff. And here I am have none of the above. But
the peace of only having to worry about yourself and the wonder of like being able to just move around the world and do what you want to do. If right now, if you want to pick up and go work somewhere else, you can, you know, especially in this moment of like nomad life, digital nomad life, right? You want to take a vacation, like there's no check-in process. And that's fantastic. And I just wish that women enjoy that. And that's not to say that, you know, we should not allow love in when it comes and not marry when it feels right. But sometimes I feel like it's a lot of women who just, you know, they want to be in a relationship because they want to be in a relationship. It could be anybody.
Yeah, I do too.
You know? Now I know you don't feel that way.
No, I don't. Because if that was the case, I could have been in a relationship a long time ago.
A long time ago. What is it like? How is the dating scene going? We got to be all in your dating business, all on TV. I watched every episode.
So dating in Atlanta is interesting. It's not an Atlanta thing, honestly. It's a Black men view relationships in a traditional sense thing. Because I'm not traditional. I have this very taboo job and I don't view relationships traditionally. They have a hard time adjusting. I had a dude tell me, I've never dated someone like you. Like he legit told me that. So they have a hard time kind of seeing how that fits into their life. And so that's really what my problem is. It's going to take a very unique, special man who has worked on himself and who's really not secure with what others may say or may think, and who just secure in what he and who he is and what I bring to the table. So I haven't come across that man yet.
Does that man exist in the South?
Huh?
And then you have that question where it's like, does that man exist in the South?
Right. So I don't
or accepted as fully myself when I lived in New York City and dated men who were from, but then you miss I like Southern men.
So what you're saying is I need to move up north or to California. Is that what you're saying?
Because I think that people are just, unfortunately, less traditional. I don't know that they're progressive, but I think that they have had experiences outside of, you know, this kind of little box that traditional Black Southern culture kind of fits in. But at the same time, I love Black Southern culture. I love Black Southern men.
Me too.
So the thing was, it was very easy for me to date in New York, and I didn't have all of these like gender battles, you know, but you also miss the certain special thing that Southern Black men have, you know?
Yeah.
This thing makes it feels like home, you know?
And this is all I know too. So, I mean, maybe in my travels, I'll find someone, or, you know, someone's in Atlanta for work or something.
Yeah.
In Atlanta who's not from here, but from other places, and they just had to be here. So I'm hopeful. But give me, no, what you say?
I said, and you should be hopeful.
I'm hopeful. You know, it's a small smidgen of hope, but it's so give me one thing you want readers to take away from reading Sex and the Single Woman.
One thing that I want readers to take away, again, what I love about the book is that it offers so many different perspectives. I think it also gives us an opportunity to like think about things outside of our perspective and the way that we might traditionally think about something. And I think that that's valuable. So like being open, I think is something that I, you know, broaden our horizons in some ways. I think also something that is very special about the book, and you said this, right? There were so many stories that you related to. I think what we hope happens with the book is that women feel less alone in wherever they are. You know, so if you are a, you know, Black queer woman or a queer woman, there's an essay in there where you can, you know, think about, oh, like, what's that like? Or if you are, you know, a woman who is, you know, a feminist and very progressive and forward thinking about relationship dynamics, but like you still want to cuddle. Like there are lots of people who can relate to that and who will feel less alone by reading that. Or if you are someone who is like, you know, I keep saying that I want to be monogamous, but honey, the truth is in my actions. And, you know, I'm serial monogamous at best. I really don't dig the tradition of that, you know. Then there's, you know, an essay that you can read where you feel like, well, damn, I'm not weird. You know what I mean? Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Oh, I'm not acting like a man. You know, because I am not choosing these traditions. So I think whatever your experience is in womanhood, there is an essay in here. There are essays in here by, you know, everything from trans women to brown women, you know, women who follow certain traditions, women who don't. Like, I think that, and it's a book that talks a lot about pleasure. Which I love. And so that's another thing that I would like to take away, like different perspectives on pleasure, our search for it, how we find it, what we do with it when we find it, how we incorporate more of it into our lives, how do we get free to the point where we can just recognize pleasure as something outside of sex only. You know what I mean? Like, so those are some of the things that I hope folks will take away. And for, you know, men should read the book too, hell, and learn something about women, because they be out here speaking like they don't know a thing.
Okay. Listen, I'm over it. But I thank you, Josie, for coming and talking about your book. Let people know where they can find you on social media.
Sure. So I am at Joe Nubian on Twitter. I'm trying to get my Twitter chops back up. It's kind of like where I first started building a following and writing and so forth. But I'm at Joe Nubian on Twitter and on Instagram. And so you all can hit me up there. And you can find Sex and the Single Woman anywhere that books are sold. As I said, it's an anthology of 24 different writers writing about womanhood and love and sex and freedom.
Oh,